I gotta be honest, I didn't come in to rap. Came to talk about my business as a matter of fact. Mike started feeding frenzy as I spit on this track. So I asked all the sharks to sit back and relax. Flipstick is the brand. If you already heard about it, raise your hand. It's a kickstand on demand. With Flipstick, gravity is under your command. Let me repeat for those who missed it. To any flat surface, your phone will stick. Get it wet, but the stickiness will persist. Tell you how I thought it up if time permits. Flipstick is the brand. If you already heard about it, raise your hand. It's a kickstand on demand. With Flipstick, gravity is under your command. In summary, I came to Shark Tank for a band, so I could put Flipstick in everybody's hands. Sharks, get a kid a chance. I'll deliver ROI on your 100 grand.
Hey!
Yes.
Hell yeah.
Hi guys, thanks for tuning in to another week listening to the STL Bucket List Show, which is recorded right here at Half Coast Studios. I'm your host, Marissa Farrell.
And I'm your other host, Luke Farrell. And we proudly present this podcast by the Regional Arts Commission of St. Louis. They're the largest public funder of arts and art programs right here in St. Louis. And if you guys didn't know, more people travel to St. Louis for art institutions and art programs than actually sports. Which is hard to believe. So St. Louis is a arts town, and we just can't thank you guys enough for this partnership. But without further ado, we have a really special person in the studio today, a fierce entrepreneur. Been working with them in the same building for about like 3-4 months now. And just seeing them grow like crazy has been incredible. So Mr. Akeem Shannon, thank you for joining us in the studio today.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, we're excited to have you.
Owner, founder, creator of Flipstick. We got some on the screen if you guys are watching on YouTube. If you haven't heard of them yet, they are all over St. Louis. Just had a big creator event down at Ballpark Village. And it was amazing to just see different types of influencers from age 18 to
Who knows?
Yeah, we had some old heads out there.
I've seen some.
Trying to make some TikToks.
Yeah, well, you have a lot going on. We're going to get all into that today. We're going to start off by just who is Akeem and, your upbringing, your family background. What school did you go to?
Well, let me start off with my social security number is 47. No. So, yeah, I'm born and raised right here in St. Louis. Everyone asks what high school you went to DeSmit Jesuit High School. I had a full scholarship to go off to college, went to Howard University in DC, the real HU for those who really know. And that's where I probably hit my first little hiccup. So I went to study chemical engineering, and I realized that organic chemistry was very hard and I hated it. And I was like, you know what? I don't think this chemistry thing is for me. But unfortunately, I found that out after I lost my scholarship. So the grades were terrible, and I basically had to come back home. And so that was really my first foray into the business world, and ended up starting to work in retail stores. I worked for Sprint selling cell phones, and kind of brought that full circle here with Flipstick, and ultimately got promotions. And eventually I got this offer to come work at Verizon. And so as I'm kind of working my way up, like my whole mindset, from coming from school and losing this scholarship, I was like, going to DeSmit, there's some kids that went to Harvard and Yale. And I'm like, man, I can't, when the anniversary comes around, I don't want to be a deadbeat, living in my parents' basement. Like, I got to figure this out. So I was always just like, man, if I can just make more than the average college graduate, like I can get my life back on track. And I found myself, moving over to Verizon and working like in their call center, selling what's called FiOS, like their charter internet type, spectrum type service. And yeah, like within the course of 4 or 5 years after being, kicked out of school, I was making like $90,000 a month. $90,000 a year. I wish a month. I was like, I never would have started a business. $90,000 a year. And I had saved close to $100,000 in just like liquid assets. And so I felt, it really felt like I had a comeback. Yeah. And so that's kind of how I got started. I can keep going. Keep on going.
So, but how far into school did you,
Did I make? Yeah.
Well, did you lose your scholarship? Like, was it
first
year,
it was quick,
first semester?
Y'all. It was real quick.
They take scholarships that quick. I mean, I guess.
Oh yeah, you get 1 semester.
Yeah.
You get 1 semester probation, and the next semester.
Oh yeah, they'll
gone.
let you go.
So I was in my 3rd semester, and funny enough, so I don't even know if I would really say 3 semesters. So really, I made it 2 semesters. I made it 1 year. I came back for the 3rd semester, knowing that scholarship was gone. But I was like, maybe I can talk. I'm a good talker. I was like, maybe I can talk my way into something. No, that wasn't happening. And so I literally wasn't going to class. Like, this was one of those. I don't think I really knew what depression was, and even at this time, I don't think I knew that I was depressed. But I was depressed. Like, I wasn't going to class. Like, I was just in my dorm room every day, lights off, like getting up at 2:00 in the afternoon. Like, it was rough. But I don't think I had the words to know, like, oh, this is depression. I'm just like, oh, I'm just.
And this was 10 years ago, roughly.
About 10 years ago.
Did your family know that you were going through that and that you were not going to class? And
not at all. My mom, she was so mad. So I get this knock on my door, and it's like the head of the dorm, and they're like, your mom called me. She said she was calling the police if you don't call her right now. So he stood at the door while I called my mom, because she had not heard from me probably in 4 or 5 weeks.
Wow.
And so, I was like not answering the phone. Like, it was a rough time. Yeah. And I still didn't even tell her then, I was just like, oh no, I've just been busy, this and the other.
Working on homework.
Yeah, homework and but the crazy thing is, during the same time, I got to do some really cool stuff. Like I remember they were opening the monument for Dr. King. Was getting ready to open, and so I went to the grand opening. I volunteered. I met Stevie Wonder. I got to give Stevie Wonder a shirt. He was super funny. Like, they had all these custom polo shirts and hats, and I was like, "Here you go." And he's like, "Oh, this looks really nice." Which is great. It's really funny.
Yeah.
And it was just this really cool experience, and I got to go see Congressional Black Caucus and all these cool things being in town. But at the same time, it was this big bad secret that I wasn't in school, and eventually I was gonna have to tell my parents and come home. So that was tough.
What was that conversation like when you actually told them? Did you come home first?
That would be holiday break or
holiday
something?
break. Oh yeah, Christmas is coming up.
I'm actually staying.
So I didn't want to tell them in person because I was too afraid. So I got really high. And it's December, it's probably December 17th, something around there, right, less than a week before I was supposed to go home.
Yes.
You were waiting,
I was waiting.
I gotta do this.
I was like, I got to do this because they were going to buy a ticket for me to come back up, a plane ticket. I'm like, I can't let them, buy this. And so, I remember I called and I was just sobbing on the phone, crying. And they were like, just come home. It's okay. It's all right. It wasn't okay. When I got home, they let me have it. But they just wanted to make sure I got home.
Sure.
It was a tough call. One of the toughest conversations I've ever had in my life.
It is hard, just that feeling of I'm disappointing my parents. There's not
especially when they pour so much into you. They sacrifice so many things, and then you just feel like, oh man, it was all for nothing.
Oh, I'm a disappointment. But as we know, you're not. So keep telling more of your story. And
so I always had this goal. As soon as I came home, I was like, I have to. I didn't talk to any friends from high school, anything, because I knew I just wanted to get to that point where I could feel accomplished. And I think that big turning point for me is when I was at Verizon. I was making good money. I was like, all right, I'm feeling pretty good. But I ended up winning this dope contest that they had called Verizon Rockstar. And it was for the top sales rep who could pitch the products better than anyone. And they flew all of the finalists down to Miami, and we stayed at this super luxurious hotel and all this great stuff. And I remember when I did that contest, I got to meet some celebrities that Verizon had at the event. And I was like, you know what? I feel like I've recovered now. And this is probably maybe 2014, 2015.
Okay.
So, 5 years. After leaving school, and I was like, you know what? I think I'm.
And you're in your early 20s. You're 25 years old at this time, probably.
Yeah. I'm 25, and or maybe a little younger than that.
23 years.
Yeah, something like that. I don't know. Math is not my strong suit. But I just felt like I had really come back all the way, and so fast forward about a year from there, I'm doing really well at Verizon, but they were getting ready to exit that space. They were selling that division off to another company, and I just knew in the back of my head, I'm like, I have to get out of here because they're going to start laying people off. As soon as the sales goes through, they're going to lay people off. And I ended up leaving. And at the time, I wanted to start a business. I was like, you know what? I'm ready. My dad's an entrepreneur. I'm like, I'm ready to start my own thing. And I ended up working on like a political campaign for a while to just make a little money on the side, which was a fun new experience. But ultimately, as I was getting ready to start the business, I get a call from Square, the people who make Cash App, the cash register for your phone. And they're like, hey, we're opening an office in St. Louis. We see you're a top sales rep. We'd love you to join the team. And, all my life, like I'm a big nerd, like a big techie type person. And I always wanted to work for a tech company. It just seemed like the sexiest, coolest thing to do.
Their offices are always the coolest offices.
Like
Silicon
slides
Valleys and Nap Pods.
Yeah, Nap Pod. And so, I was still on the fence and I was like, I don't know. I was like, can I still run my business while I'm working here? And they're like, no, you can't. Like, but why don't you come out to San Francisco? And they sold me, you tech companies, it's like you get free catered lunch every day and you can go on a limited vacation. And you're like, what does that mean? She was like, you just go on vacation whenever you feel like it. It was like, is that legal? Like, I'm gonna have my job when I get back. So working there was just like, man, it opened my eyes to what it means to run a business that like really cares about the people that work there.
Yeah.
Because we're just so well taken care of. Mm-hmm. And what was really awesome about being there was that I got to work with small business owners every day. And I'm working with people who, started something out there, the back of their garage and started things small and grew it into, $5, $10, $20 million businesses. And they're using Square registers. I'm like, man, all these people are like starting things and doing this and running their own show. And, you see, being a credit card processor, you learn about how much money they're making and where the profit is going and, how they're doing marketing. And you realize like, man, I could do this.
Right.
And so it was 2017 that I went to my boss at Square and I'm like, look, it's time for me to go. Like I have to leave. I got to do my own thing. And he was incredibly supportive. I feel grateful. I've always had really great managers and I feel like no matter what job I've been in, I've got to learn a lot.
Yeah.
And so he was super supportive. He's like, you know what, go out, do your thing. He's like, but just don't go be a bum. And he gave me a book that day called The Alchemist. And for those who don't know, without spoiling it, it's a book about a boy who's in search for his treasure. And on this journey to find his treasure, he learns about these things called omens. And today, we think of omens as like a sign or, a sign from the universe, something like that. And he takes this knowledge and he goes and he searches for his treasure. And so having read the book, and it's actually, if I rewind a little bit, the book chased me down. I wasn't going to read the book.
I was like, you got that book first, right? And you were like,
Yeah, it kept finding you.
I wasn't going to read the book. Yeah, so, my boss gives me the book. I'm like, it's kind of thick. It is really a short book, y'all. It's so short. But I was like, it's kind of thick. I'm not going to read it. Set it down. Didn't look at it. But even though I didn't know about these omens and these signs, it was like almost like a precursor to what the book was about because all these omens started happening to me. So, as I'm not reading the book, I'm watching TV and I'm watching something that my mom sends me. It's like Oprah and she's talking to Pharrell and Pharrell's like, yeah, I read this book called The Alchemist and it changed my life and it's why I'm so successful. And I'm like, oh, that's that book Tom gave me. I'm not going to read that book that changed his life. And then, I'm doing something else and I hear about the book again and it just kept coming up. And what ultimately led me to read it was I was moving. This is probably like late fall of 2017. And I'm moving. And as we're moving all my stuff to this new apartment, I see this copy of The Alchemist. There was a softback copy that was tattered up and old, but the copy my boss gave me was a hardback cover that was brand new and pristine. I'm like, where? Can you curse on this show?
Yeah, sure.
Oh, I didn't know if you guys. I'm like, where the fuck did this book come from? And I literally was just so freaked out because I'm like, how did this book get here? How long have I owned this book and didn't even know I had this book? And it's just like sitting on my counter. And so literally in the middle of all the boxes and chaos of moving, I just sat down, read it cover to cover.
And this was the old version, like the
this is the old version because I couldn't find the new version.
You're like, it's meant to be. I have to read this book.
It was an omen.
It was an omen. Yeah.
It was an omen. That's exactly right. And so I read the book and it just really inspired me to understand that, omens don't exist if you don't know they exist. All those times I was hearing about this book and not reading it, it meant nothing to me. But if I had been in a mindset that was like, oh no, this is meant for me to read this right now, is super critical for me to read it, then I would have done it. And so I took that mentality into everything that I did. And so within the next 30 days, I'm on a phone call and I'm in this mindset of anything can be assigned to tell me what to do next. And I have to really be like in touch with my emotions. I'm on this phone call, it's 3:00 in the morning. You know, for those who have heard this story, you know, this is kind of how Flipstick got started. But, you know, my uncle calls me. He's an engineer at NASA. He's telling me about this project he was working on. And he tells me about this adhesive that NASA had created in the 70s and done all this research and how he was going to use it for his project. And as it would happen, because I just moved, I just mounted my TV on the wall, and it took me so long to mount that TV.
They do take so long.
They do.
Well, and it takes, like, normally, you know, you have studs in a house.
Yeah.
They go up and down, right? They're supposed to be vertical. But in my apartment building, they said, you know what? What if we made the studs horizontal? That makes total sense. So I couldn't find them. So give me a little credit. But yeah, so I mounted this TV and I'm like, man, this adhesive would have saved me so much time if I could have just stuck the TV on the wall and not mounted it. And that's really where this whole concept behind Flipstick came from. It was just, all right, this little mini TV that you can mount on the wall. And from there, things just started, you know, I just poured everything into it. I was doing like marketing at the time, and I realized marketing is kind of just like having a whole bunch of bosses, and you know, right? Like marketing is just having all these different bosses, and I'm like, no, I want to work for me. I want to do stuff that benefits me, that I'm going to get like a return on my investment for. And you know, as I am going through this, I kind of felt embarrassed that I was already ready to give up on this idea a month, you know, 3 months into it, and go into Flipstick only. So I didn't even tell people it was my idea. I was like, oh, this is just a marketing client of mine. But the whole time I was building up like to do a Kickstarter campaign, and I was researching how to do a patent, how to do trademarks, all of this work I was pouring into this. And so fast forward to 2018, April, we launched our Kickstarter campaign. And people often ask me, like, when did you decide that you were going, like, this is it, like, all in? And really, I was sitting in Breadco, Panera, and we launched the campaign within the first 3 minutes. And our video on Kickstarter was 3 minutes. Then the first 3 minutes, we like got our first sale. And then the sales just kept coming. And like that first day, we made like $2,000 in sales. And we had no product. It was just a video telling people about what I wanted to make. And once that happened, I was like, all right, this is it. I'm all in. And yeah, it's been a crazy journey ever since then.
That's inspiring. And like you said, sometimes it takes somebody else to do it. Like, you can be confident that you know all these things and all this, but it's like you need other people to, like, this is what the right path. So tell us about, let's go back to your parents just before we go on to the Flipstick stuff. Like, what were your parents like during that creative process when you wanted to become an entrepreneur? Because you said your dad was an entrepreneur. So obviously he was probably pretty supportive.
Oh, my parents told me never quit jobs. Never, ever, ever, ever. So, I mean, I can think back to when I was at Sprint. I get my job at Sprint, and, you know, I was doing halfway decent, getting promotions. And I was like, you know, Mom, I have this opportunity. One of my former managers is at Verizon. I can make double the money. And she's like, no, you can't quit the job you have because, you know, you're getting promotions and you could be a store manager and you don't know, you're going to have to start all over at this new company. I was like, it's twice the pay. Who cares?
Right.
And, you know, I think for parents and for anyone that loves you, right, like they are really risk averse for you because they want to protect you. They don't want to see you fall. And, you know, anytime I've taken risk, like my parents are always worried. They're always like, oh, don't take that risk. That's not worth it. Don't take a risk. And so whether it was quitting a Sprint to go to Verizon, I quit Verizon with no plans, ended up it being at Square. I quit Square. I learned by then. After that, I was like, I'm just not going to tell them I quit. Yeah. Like, because every time they freak out.
Because that was your best opportunity at that point. Yeah. So they would have like been like, are you kidding me?
Absolutely.
You got exactly what you want.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I'm always like leaving something and going to the next thing. And you don't know it's going to be better until you go and try.
You never know. I know. My parents are always like, at least make sure you have another job lined up before you quit. So I'm like,
nowadays it's like, just quit if you're unhappy or if you're not fully fulfilled. I mean, there's always other opportunities.
Today, there's so many opportunities.
It's whether not like retire after 50 years, like everybody did, but they're in that mindset of like, stay at the union job or whatever it might be.
Exactly. And the thing is, there's so many. I wish I had known in college what I know now, and it's that you can literally do anything. Like, there's so many ways to make money, to make a living. Why not do what it is that you love and enjoy? Because it is so possible for you to make a living and a life doing what it is that makes you excited every day. And so, you know, I actually tell people now, I'm like, look, if you believe that you can do something and you want to go after something, don't tell anybody. Because almost always people are going to try to talk you out of doing what it is, especially if there's a big risk on the table. They're going to be like, oh, are you sure you want to do that? Well, you need to have a backup plan. Backup plan is always going to set you up for failure. If you're like, oh, if it doesn't work out, that's cool. I'll just go back. Go for it all the way. And if it doesn't work out, then you can go down another path. But yeah, I tell people, look, don't tell people, just go and do it. And I'm glad I've taken that motto several times, because there's been some crazy things that I've tried that have worked out, and some really big risk, calculated risk, but some really big risks that have paid off. And I could have easily let someone talk me out of doing those things.
Yeah, very true.
Yeah.
But you know what, you talked about my parents, and even though they were risk averse, one thing that I will say really benefited me was that having a dad that was an entrepreneur, and like growing up with him coaching the basketball team, and being at all the school plays, and we could go on vacation. It wasn't like you didn't have to request for time off or any of that stuff. It kind of put me in that mindset. It trained me to like feel that was normal, and so it wasn't super scary for me to leave a job, because that was not something that I knew growing up, where it was like, oh, you have to have a job in order to pay for things. My dad's business was always changing and evolving, and one revenue stream would die out and he would go and pivot to something else. So to me, that just was something that you could do.
Yeah. It was modeled for you. So
bingo,
for you,
that's
you're
the
like,
word.
yeah, it was just a model. And you're like, okay, what's the worst that happens?
Exactly.
On to the next path. So yeah. Anything else you want to add about your background and family?
Well, I can go on forever, but I'll let you lead the conversation.
All right.
Then
No.
You got this, Mrs. Farrell.
So you were talking about how you looked at your phone and you were like, it's a mini TV, that, that's kind of how your idea came about. How long were you like thinking about that? Like playing with this idea of like, I'm going to do this for a phone? Because I know you were telling the story about mounting the TV and you're like, oh, I could do this. But like, how long did you sit on that idea before you actually...
It wasn't long.
Okay.
Because, I was definitely in this like action mode. I was like, I have to take action on this. And so, this was October of 2018. I mean, I really kind of got on it right away. Pretty soon after that, I basically just made a little mock-up, like cardstock, double-sided tape, like really rudimentary. And I actually still do that to this day, even though now we have more money and we work with people that are like professionals at this. But I'm still like, give me some tape and some string, and it's just easy. But I made that, and I knew that it was pretty easy to either just take a video or make a sample and send it to people in China. So, I get on Alibaba, I start researching, who's making command hook style products, who's making any type of reusable adhesives, who's making phone accessories. And I just start emailing, reaching out to all these people, send them a video of what it is that I want to make. And the ball was rolling at that point.
So is that like totally scary to send your idea out there? Because
definitely.
The risk of, what if someone steals
what
it?
If? Oh, they're going to steal it.
How does that, so what's that like? Then you gotta get a like.
Yeah, I honestly did things a little bit out of order, to be honest. Like I started sending it out to China like in 2017, but I didn't file for my patent until 2018, till early 2018. And so, what I also knew though was that regardless, like there's a lot of countries where a patent will protect you, as long as you have the money to fight for it. But in China, it's not going to matter. So, my philosophy has always been Apple's philosophy, where it's like, just out innovate your competition. If you have something new every year, they're always going to be playing catch up.
Yeah.
So whether they try to copy everything you do or not, you can always stay one step ahead.
You're always first.
Bingo. And ultimately, people are going to buy something with your name on it. Like that's the most valuable thing that we all have, is our names. And so, the first thing I did was figure out how to do a trademark. I filed a couple of trademarks, and then right before our Kickstarter, because at first I wasn't even going to do a patent, I was like, oh, this is going to be too expensive. It's going to be too hard. But then I learned about provisional patents and how easy that was, and that you could do it yourself. It's like $80. And so then right before our Kickstarter launched, I filed the provisional patent. And I should have brought it with me. So we just in the mail, like yesterday, got our full patent, like documentation with the seal and all that stuff with the gold
That's
on
awesome.
it. And it just shows you how long it takes,
Yes.
like years. But we finally got our patent in the mail, and it was, oh man, it's just a great feeling.
Yeah. Like, frame it and put it up.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna get a nice frame.
Yeah, get a really nice frame for it. So that's why like sometimes stuff says like patent pending. Okay. Yeah, I was gonna say most things are like when they go to Shark Tank or when they go to one of these things like patent pending product, you know, and stuff like that.
Yeah, and so like for most of us, like our stuff's gonna be patent pending for years. Now, if you have like an Apple or Sony or Samsung, you can everything is pay to play, so you can pay to get stuff accelerated and pushed to the top, but then you're gonna spend tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars. But for them, it makes sense because one leak and someone else can beat them to it. Yeah. So for them, it makes sense to just dump lots of money into making sure they can get a patent issued in like 6 months or a year versus the rest of us where it's like 2 to 4 years.
We had Tamara Keefe on here who does the booze-infused ice cream and from Clementine's. She owns Clementine's. And she had said that she went to a person in the food industry about filing a patent for her booze-infused ice cream. But they said it's better to keep it as a trade secret because when you file the patent, it becomes public information. And then somebody else can take that and change one ingredient and
call it theirs.
Well, now,
and I don't know, more than me about all that stuff.
Well, the big thing is like when you're doing patents, like they understand you can't divulge everything, right? So you can keep it very broad, and most good attorneys will be like, no, we're going to keep this extremely broad because one, it doesn't give away your secrets, and two, it gives you more protection by not giving all the details. You can just say, oh no, it's just booze and cream and it's frozen, and now like you don't have to get all the secrets of exactly how you got it there, right? But you can still stop anyone that even comes close, because what happens a lot of time in with intellectual property is that people will tweak one little thing just to get around your patent, and you don't want that. So it's like making it really broad is the big thing, and something that we learned about. As I mentioned, I've made mistakes, and when you're doing business, you're always gonna make mistakes. But one thing we didn't do is pay to like file a lot of international like patents in every single country because it gets expensive. So we missed deadlines. And so we've got a great attorney, and our attorney was like, oh, no, this is no worries. Like, you guys already have this patent set up. He's like, you can also do what's called a continuation in part. So what that means is, and this is what most big companies do, that means that they never actually let their full patent application close, and they just keep adding on to the original patent over and over.
Just keep it going.
Yep. And so what that'll do is like, say, for example, with your booze ice cream, if somebody comes along and then they are like, oh, well, we're doing it this way, it's different. Well, since your patent's not completely closed, you can say, nope, we're going to add that to our original patent, and it'll go all the way back to the original date. As long as it's close enough, you can just keep adding over and over to it. So, yes, it gets messy with the IP stuff.
How do you learn this stuff? So, like, I always say YouTube University. I went to YouTube University when it came to marketing. I have no formal. I swear to market. No, I swear though, like everything I learned, because like in everything I learned was from either failing and trying a different way or going to YouTube and seeing somebody else that knows how to do it. 100%. So like, when you were looking at all this stuff, like, were you studying other people?
Yeah, all YouTube. Yeah. No, I mean, YouTube, I'm a visual learner. Like I like the visual and the audio. And so, I mean, like I remember watching this really boring video about like filing a provisional patent and what you should put in each field and how the language matters, how you say it. And like, you need to speak the language of the I forgot what they call them, but the person that works at the patent office to make sure that they're not rejecting it because you didn't say it in the right way. And like, it walked me through the whole thing. And I mean, it was like a 30-minute video. People pay $10,000 for a provisional patent. You watch a 30-minute video like 4 times, and then you go and do it, and you save yourself $10,000. Like, right. I mean, you can't beat stuff like that.
Right. And there's just so much free information.
But
you have to use it. There's so much that it gets overwhelmed. And like, everybody on Instagram is a guru. So like, you're like scrolling on Instagram. You just don't know who to listen to though. And same with books, and stuff like that. But it's just important to just keep educating yourself. Even however it goes. So
so talk us through your creative process and just I don't know, design, like just what step by step what that kind of looks like for you and building a team. And
so my creative process is kind of chaotic. I have ADD, so usually with me it's like I'll wake up in the middle of the night because I didn't sleep right, and it's like 4:30 in the morning, and I should go back to sleep, but then all of a sudden, like, I just get this spark of like motivation, and then like my mind just starts just spinning up, and I get really excited, and then I'm like pacing around, and then my boyfriend's like, "Why are you pacing? It's 4 a.m. in the morning." I'm like, I'm in the zone, and so usually once I have ideas, I learned this from Nikola Tesla. What he would do when he was, instead of running like lots of experiments, he would always run experiments in his mind first. So, when he wanted to, understand the difference between like direct current and alternate current in electricity, he would just run the full experiment in his mind. Okay, if it's direct current, this is what's going to happen. He would just imagine the whole thing, not knowing whether it's going to work or not, but just based off his imagination. And so he would run dozens of experiments over and over and over. And once he felt like he had it in his mind, then he would actually go run the real experiment. And it just allowed him to do things that people just weren't doing at the time. And so I kind of do the same thing. Like when I think about new products, I run the experiment of, okay, how will that work? Well, where would that run into problems? Where will that break? Like, well, what will that be like if this person is using it? What will it be like if that person is using it? Like I kind of run through those things and just imagine different people living and using the product. And then from there, I start to sketch. So then I'll write out what it is that I want. And, originally, as I mentioned, it was just cardstock, double-sided tape. Is really simple. It's a super, super simple product. However, like with some of our new products that we're working on, they're quite a bit more complex. So we've been working with an industrial design firm based right here in St. Louis who does like crazy, like high-end Fortune 500 type products. But I do the same thing with them, and they're engineers. But when I kind of tell them what it is I want and sketch it out and start cutting paper up and getting paper clips and things, they get it and they're like, yes, we can make that. So then they'll take it into AutoCAD and, make it into something that, I can send to a manufacturer and get exactly what it is that I want. But honestly, for me, it's still the same way as, construction paper
From the get.
and just scattered in ideas. And like sometimes when I'm talking and it's the same thing, like I'm like, this is what I want, this is what I want, this is what I want. And then they're like, you're like, can you like simplify that, like make a list? But like you just have to speak it. Like you were saying, speak it in your head. So then you're like, okay, over and over and over again. And just exactly like an athlete, like they use manifestation too, like a baseball player. They manifest that ball coming into the zone when they hit it, but they have to see it first. You have to see it in your head first before you actually do it. So like you believe in the law of attraction?
Oh, I mean, yeah, you have to.
You have to by now.
Like there's no successful person on the planet that will be like, oh, yeah, that law of attraction thing, that's fake news. Because after it happens once or twice or 3 or 4 times, eventually you're like, well, this is definitely how this works.
Right.
So, I'm a big believer in law of attraction and manifestation and visualization. Like all of those things are so big. And, I don't think when I first started, I don't think I realized how important like that spirituality type aspect was to business. Like there's a very technical side of business, but then there's this like spiritual, like energy side of business. And that's why it's so important to protect your mind and your emotions and how you feel, because otherwise, you're going to miss the opportunities that are right in front of you. Like you won't be there, or you'll be at a meeting, you won't talk to the right person, or you're on the elevator, you don't say something to some guy. Like all these different things are super important. And man, I mean, we've been so fortunate and blessed. Like some of just the most amazing things have just come to us, and like we couldn't have planned it, and we couldn't have paid for it. It happened because it's just in the right mindset.
We're open to it. You attracted it. So
with all of the things that you have coming your way, there's your journey, there's challenges, there's setbacks, failures. Woo. So tell us about some of those struggles that you've had.
It's hard out here, y'all. It's hard, okay? But I think in the beginning, like when I would get a setback, especially like going way back to like college, I thought that was the end. I'm like, this is devastating. But when you come back from things that are really tough, when you have failures in the future, you're like, oh, if I come back from that, I come back from this. Like I always am telling myself, what if everything fell apart like today? Like Flipstick, we went out of business, we ran out of money, I had to start over. And I just think about like, what would I do? And now I feel like I have so many skills that I'm just ready, right? Like if whatever happens, I just assume it was what was meant to be. And I'm like ready to move on to the next thing. But it still doesn't always take the sting and the bite out of having a failure. I remember when, this is probably around 2019, I had applied for Shark Tank and gotten really far in the process, and I didn't make it onto the show. Out of 40,000 people, I made it to like the final 200, and then they whittle it down to 120, and I didn't make the cut. And I was just devastated. Like I'm not a plan B type of person. I had all my eggs in one basket, and it didn't go through. I was devastated. Like I was really sad. But after a couple of days, I'm like, look, this is what was supposed to happen, and I just have to figure out what's next. And that ultimately led me to being on Instagram and seeing a post about Diddy's event called the Revolt Summit. And I went down to Atlanta, and like all these doors started opening from getting in with his organization and selling them flip sticks and all kinds of crazy stuff. And like, I think oftentimes as we grow up, we're taught that like failure is this bad thing. Like you want to avoid failure. But it's like if I had have avoided that failure of not making it on Shark Tank then, one, I wasn't ready. Like we weren't in a space where we probably would have gotten a deal anyway. But two, like I wouldn't have met Diddy's organization, and I wouldn't have sold flip sticks to them, which means I wouldn't have met Snoop Dogg and got him a flip stick, and all these like things that happened that made it into a better story that have then opened doors for more things to happen, like deals with Target and Best Buy and all this kind of stuff. So, you realize that these failures that you have they're all part of your process of success. And it's not this ladder you're climbing, but I always like to say it's really a roller coaster. Like you get all this momentum and you see yourself going up and it seems like the sky's the limit, and then you just get hit and you just fall. It feels like you're free falling. But that failure that you experience and that downward trend is just the momentum. Like if you put in the work, then all of that is just going to propel you to the next height. And then you're going to come back down, and then it's going to propel you even higher. But the hill gets bigger and bigger and bigger, because the bigger the failures, the bigger the successes have to be. Like I remember starting off early, just to show you kind of how it works, just in a really quick monetary way. So when I first started Flipstick, I'm trying to get all these different suppliers and find someone, right? I spent like $1,000 with one, like $1,200 and like $1,100, all around $1,000. Well, two of those people didn't pay off. So that was like $2,200 down the drain, gone. Poof. At the time, it was like, oh,
it's a lot at that time.
It hurts. It stings. Then fast forward like a year or two, I did this event with Diddy and stuff, and I meet these guys who are like, we're going to get you funding. We're going to get you investment. Like, we're going to help you. They're charging $5,000 retainer a month. I pay them for 2 months, $10,000. It's a complete joke, total scam. Like, they didn't do anything for me. So now I'm at $10,000, and I'm like, oh, man, like, this hurts. And then fast forward again, I'm like buying houses and stuff and working on real estate. And I have this guy who's helping me out with real estate stuff. And he's supposed to be a general contractor. He's going to do it. I spent $40,000 to renovate a property. $40,000. Doesn't get it done. Boom, gone. God. And it's just like sickening. It's sickening. But here's the flip side of those things, right? When I lost the $2,000, right after that, Diddy bought a whole bunch of flip sticks from me. And that was like a $5,000 check, right? And then when I lost the $10,000 after that, we ended up making it on the Shark Tank. We got like $100,000 from like a couple days after Shark Tank. When I lost the $40,000, we ended up getting a deal from Target. That was like $200,000. And then after that, we ended up getting an international deal. It was like $200,000. And we got things from other people. So it's like you see the magnitude shift. And so I know, like, yeah, I've lost $40,000 once, but guess what? You know what I can't wait? I can't wait to lose $500,000. Because if I lose $500,000, it means that I definitely am going to be making like $2 to $3 million, because that's the only way that I would be able to even take the risk to be in a position to lose that kind of money, as if there was much more on the other side.
It's a privilege. Like, it's a privilege to be able to take those risks and be able to keep moving. And they say pressure. Like, that $2,000 probably hurt more than losing way more than that now. 100%. Because that $2,000 at that moment, like I remember when I first became an entrepreneur and I got like my car towed or a parking ticket, like it killed me. And I was like, I was down so bad. I was like, how am I going to pay $250? I just quit my job.
Yes.
Like I got my car towed at Mardi Gras, something crazy. And like, if like my car breaks down and it's like a $2,000 repair now, I'm just like, whatever. Because like there's your energy that you waste on that.
Bingo.
You know, on that money lost is crazy. So you talked about some failures. What was the moment where you said, this is it? Like, this is what I'm going to be doing? I mean, you probably had a couple, but like, what was that one moment? Was it Diddy? Was it Shark Tank? Where you're like, I'm doing the right thing? Yeah,
there was definitely a couple moments. Honestly, I have to keep reminding myself, because all the time I'm just like, this whole thing's about to fall apart. Like, I'm definitely someone who I'm always on edge.
I think almost every entrepreneur
we
talk to.
You have to.
Always.
Yeah, like I was talking to investors the other day, and they're like, well, if you made this much so far this year, you should have this by the end of the year. It's halfway through the year. And I'm like, there's no guarantees of that. I was like, we have to bust our ass to make sure that we get to that number, or we may not make it.
Right.
You know, and so, man, there's been a lot of moments, but I think the moment where I just felt like, man, I've made the right decision in my life. Like, this is Like I have a lot of cool things that have happened, but it has to be Shark Tank for sure. Like just, growing up watching that show and then to be able to like be on the show, I mean, it was just like this remarkable. It just felt amazing. And it was just such a sense of achievement. I remember when we filmed in Vegas because it was the pandemic and there was like a whole bubble like they did in the NBA. It was kind of crazy. But I remember when I finally got out the bubble, I had filmed, we got an offer from Lori on the show. And I remember I walked outside and it's like the heat of the desert. My mom was there, my boyfriend was there, and I like played like I hadn't gotten a deal. But I'm a
walked
jokester.
out with your head low.
Oh, I was so sad. I was like, oh. But I remember just walking down, what do you call it? Like Las Vegas Boulevard.
Strip.
Yeah,
Strip.
walking down the strip.
Yep.
And we're gonna walk to a restaurant, and I was just like, man, this is fucking amazing. Like this is so. I just feel so good. Like and like the adrenaline, because I had just left filming. The adrenaline was like pumping through my veins. Like I was just on a high that I've never been on before, and it was just so awesome. And speaking of getting ripped off, I have a bone to pick with a restaurant in Vegas that charged me, get this, $12 per piece of garlic toast. And they were like this big. I spent $65 on some garlic toast right after leaving there. But you know what? It didn't matter because
it didn't kill the high.
Some of those dinners, those celebration dinners, it doesn't even matter. But like a normal day,
you're like, we're going all in.
I want a refund. No.
Vegas can be like that sometimes.
No, that's special though, and to spend that with your boyfriend and with your mom in that moment, and like how proud they are of you. So tell us, like, about the support system. We always.
Well, I want to hear a little bit more about Shark Tank and just like
that Tank.
The day of and like the nerves, and then like. Because Mr. Wonderful was like, he's cutthroat. He's cutthroat, just straight to it. And he's like, all right, I'm going to give you what you want. You know what? You took too long. I'm out. He does that with so many people. I'm like, why?
And for that reason, I'm out.
I mean, whew.
So it was especially tough this year, the year I did it, because it was quarantine. It was like 2020, like height of the pandemic. And so I spent 10 days alone with no one else, no human contact, couldn't open a window, couldn't go outside, like locked inside a hotel room. And so, it was just this bizarre thing to go from that to like, all right, we're about to film in 2 hours, come downstairs. And so, getting ready to be on air, like it was incredibly nerve-wracking, but I felt prepared. I had wrote a rap, like I was gonna have music, and there's something about like singing a song or doing a rap that just makes you feel comfortable because you know it. Like it's not like a speech where you have to like, oh, let me make sure I say everything. The music kind of flows you into every word that you're gonna say next. So because I had this rap, it definitely calmed me down. But right before those doors opened, I'm not gonna lie, I thought I was having a heart attack.
Yeah.
Like my heart was beating so fast.
I know.
Big doors. They're counting down. They count down from like 50.
Oh.
And they're just like 50, 49, 40. And then they're like, cue this, cue that.
You feel like an athlete. You're like waiting to run out the tunnel.
It felt like the Super Bowl. Yeah, it felt like the Super Bowl of my life. My whole life was leading up to this one moment. And if I dropped the ball here, I would just throw away the last 28 years. It's done.
Yeah.
And, when the doors opened, though, I hit it as hard as I could. And it worked out. But like just being in front of the Sharks, they're actually really nice. Most of them are really nice.
Yeah.
But it's very chaotic. So like you don't see on TV that they all talk over each other. So it's not like you get one question and you answer a question, you get a question. No, it's everyone's asking questions all at the same time. Mr. Wonderful's like, don't answer Lori's question. It doesn't matter. My question is the one that matters. Then she's like, if you answer his question and you don't answer my question, I'm going to be upset. And then Mark Cuban's over there like taking the phone and he's like throwing it against the wall because I don't know what he thought he was going to do. He's just like, oh, choosh. And then you can't like go up to the Sharks because it's COVID and it's just complete chaos. But once they say action, it's whatever happens.
Your mind is just like,
and it's like so many successful people like being in meetings, and you've been in meetings with very successful people, but like in that room, that's so much net worth, so many accomplishments, so many businesses, so much knowledge, and like you're just there like.
And you have to go in with a game plan, right? So you asked me like Mr. Wonderful, like almost immediately he gave me an offer.
Yeah.
And, leading up to it, I really thought very carefully about like, who did I want to get a deal from? Like I thought about, if I get offers from someone who's not the person I want, and Lori was the person I wanted to get a deal with. If I get offers from someone else, like, am I going to take them? Like, how long am I going to wait to try to get Lori if somebody else makes an offer? So I wasn't really like rattled by it because I really came in with a game plan. And for that in particular, and I do this a lot of times with like big meetings, is, I had read Lori's book cover to cover. I knew what bothered her, like what would make her upset. I read articles about, don't answer all the men's questions and then leave her out in the dark, because she's going to be like, why are you answering all these men's questions and you're not answering my questions? So like, I knew all these things going into it. And yeah, when Mr. Wonderful gave me an offer, I was actually surprised because I thought he was going to be the toughest. But, I was prepared and I was like, great. I was like, no, Mr. Wonderful, I would love to take an offer. Thank you so much. She's like, let me just hear everyone else out. You may even hear something that you want to learn about.
He probably wanted royalties. He's probably wanted like something with royalties. That's
but he gave me an offer for exactly what I asked.
Literally, it was what, 20% stake?
20% stake for $100,000.
Yeah.
He gave me exactly what I asked for.
That. No.
And I let it hang out for like 30 minutes while I was answering all of Lori's questions, because that's who I wanted to get a deal with. And then he's like, you know what, I'm out. He was just sick of it. And I think he was especially sick of it because he kept telling me not to answer Lori's questions, and I kept answering her questions.
Because you came in with the plan.
I came in with a plan.
So crazy that's like the experience. Like, that's how they are. They're like, nope, ignore. No, he's not here. Pick me.
They definitely turn the drama.
It's a competition for them too,
Yeah, it is. It's like a bragging rights thing, like, right? Because who can get the most deals and whose deals can perform the best after the show, and absolutely.
That's crazy. What a wild ride.
Yeah, that's special. So this was the second. So you applied
That was the second time.
The second time. You applied in 19.
Yeah. So I applied in 2019, went to CES in Vegas, and applied and got pretty far. And then when 2020 came around, and this just goes to show you, right, like how much it matters who you meet and like the impressions you make on people and how you treat everyone, no matter who they are. So the way we ended up getting on the show in 2020 was a guy who was at the event that Diddy had in Atlanta, who was one of the judges for the pitch competition, which I did not pitch for. He turned out to be a casting director for Shark Tank. And so what ended up happening was I had actually spoken to this guy backstage and was just chit-chatting with him. We were having a good time, telling about my product, all this good stuff. After the event in Atlanta, I went to Diddy's people invited me out to LA. I sold them Flipsticks in LA. I got Snoop Dogg to fall in love with Flipstick. AT&T was there. They were a big sponsor. They fell in love with Flipstick. And so anyway, the word got back to this guy. Oh, you remember the guy from Atlanta who was doing the rap, who bogarted his way on stage, did the rap on stage? He's like, yeah, he great in LA. Everyone loved him. And so he literally 2 days before they were doing a casting call in Kansas City, he just found me on Instagram, sent me a DM, said be there, and that's how I ended up getting on the show. And it's like, if I hadn't have taken all those risks in Atlanta, and I hadn't have talked, even just had that personal connection with him where I just sat and just talked to him backstage and we were just shooting shit, like, who knows if he would have even remembered my name or, remember to even like send me that message or remembered that I was from St. Louis to be able to tell me that I was close enough to Kansas City.
He wouldn't have, because like you said, you'd have to remember so much to know that simple thing of you're from St. Louis. Like if he's seen you, you'd be like, oh, that's that motherfucker that rap or whatever. Yeah, like you said, when Snoop Dogg came out. Exactly. So was this the same rap? So in the speaker series we did, when you spoke a couple months ago, you had mentioned the rap, like when you were on the way to Atlanta, you flew out to Atlanta, it was like last minute, you were getting everything done last, and you were like, I got to come up with a rap. You're like in the bathroom trying to.
Yeah, so like I was supposed to pitch, right? Like I'm pretty good at doing pitches. I pitched my business, but the pitch competition was closed. But I knew that they had this rap/music competition where they're going to give away a record deal. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to write a rap, and I'm going to rap my pitch to Diddy and get him. I wanted him to invest. I think I'm going to get him to invest in Flipstick. Like that's what I'm going to do. And this is one of those moments where you don't tell anybody your plan, because trust me, everyone would have been like, that's a stupid plan. So I wrote this rap. I didn't tell anyone, not even my boyfriend at the time. And then I just sprung him. I was like, we should go to an open mic night. This is like a week before the event. I was like, we should go to an open mic night. And he's like, oh, okay. So we go to the open mic night, and that was the first time I actually performed the rap for anybody, and right here in St. Louis. And, I performed, and people were like, that was fire. And so I was like, okay, I think I'm on to something here. So I'm feeling pretty confident. I go down there, but when I tell you, this was like a masterclass of like manifestation and just visualization, because there's so many hurdles. You know, as you mentioned, last minute, they said, oh, you have to submit a video. I had no video, and it was like less than an hour before the deadline. So I had to go in, make the video, submit it. I was like 1 minute late, but luckily I was like, okay, they probably won't notice. And from there, like, I remember that night I did this like I looked on YouTube, found this visualization technique of like, and I'm going to get this wrong, but like you took water and you poured it into another cup. And as you were pouring into another cup, like you had these Post-it notes and you were basically like visualizing whatever you wanted to happen was in the empty cup. And like all of your energy was in this filled cup and you were like pouring it into it to make it happen. And I did this every day that I was there. And the whole thing was like getting to Diddy. And so I'm so glad I did that, because there's so many times that I would have been like, oh, this is not going to work out. Like whether it was when I needed to do a video and didn't have the video yet, or when I got there and they disqualified me. They were like, your rap's amazing. We love it. You got the top marks of everyone who competed, but you're disqualified because you're trying to pitch your business and we're trying to give away a record deal. So, you know, I could have given up then, but I didn't, because I'm like, nope, I'm here for a reason. I got to make it happen. And, you know, ultimately I ended up raising my hands during a comedy show they were having at the end of the night. And I got DC Young's fly attention. He sees it and he starts just cracking jokes about what he could do with a flip stick. It's pretty X-rated. You know, he wants to put it on people's asses and all kinds of stuff. And so they're having fun with it. I derail the comedy show. Now everyone's coming up to the stage, throwing their tchotchkes and saying they do this and they got this business. And eventually a rapper gets on the stage who's going to rap. And I'm like, yo, I can rap too. And they're like, oh, all right. The flip stick guy says he can rap. Let him come up here and embarrass himself. And that's exactly what I did. I went up there and
you spit bars.
And I spit some bars. And there was laughs and there was cheers. But ultimately, the same people that disqualified me from being in the music competition were now like, we got to introduce you to everybody. And that's how.
And they were at that show.
They were at the show because it's their event. Yeah.
Everybody.
And they introduced me to Diddy's COO and to all these executives from AT&T and their merchandise buyer and all these people. And I just was collecting numbers. I'm like, let me get your numbers. I remember I was backstage and I was talking to Diddy's hairstylist his stylist, which was kind of weird. Not what you would imagine Diddy's stylist to be. He was like a skinny, gay, older white man. And I was like, how long have you known Diddy? He's like, 25 years. I said,
and his fits are so fire too. You're like, yeah,
like, really? He's like, yeah, I got his number. I'm like, I'm gonna have everyone's number if
all the connects.
Right.
All the connects.
Just shooting your shot. So I think the audience really wants to hear this.
I was
rap.
like, come on now. Do you feel like
they really want to hear the rap? I know the people that are listening right now
today?
Are going to be like, what is this song? The DC Young Fly I thought was fire.
Yeah.
Like everybody loved this song.
Look,
but
I gotta be honest, I didn't come in to rap. Came to talk about my business as a matter of fact. Mike started feeding frenzy as I spit on this track. So I asked all the sharks to sit back and relax. Flipstick is the brand. If you already heard about it, raise your hand. It's a kickstand on demand with Flipstick. Gravity is under your command. Let me repeat for those who missed it. To any flat surface your phone will stick. Get it wet, but the stickiness will persist. Tell you how I thought it up if time permits. Flipstick is the brand. If you already heard about it, raise your hand. It's a kickstand on demand with Flipstick. Gravity is under your command. In summary, I came to Shark Tank for a band, so I could put Flipstick in everybody's hands. Sharks, get a kid a chance. I'll deliver ROI on your 100 grand.
Hey!
Yes.
Hell yeah.
How many times have you had to do that rap?
I've done, well, if you count all the times I had to practice it, thousands.
You'll never forget it.
Oh,
never forget it.
Do you ever do that? And like, so now you meet with a lot of investors now. I mean,
Yeah,
does
do you
anybody
do
ever
that?
like, I mean, that's not like.
So, you know, investors know it's usually speaking engagements. Speaking engagements,
Always.
almost
at the
all,
business
like a
hour.
lot of times people ask you. But, you know, when you're in a meeting with like Target or, you know, any of these big retailers, you know, usually they've watched the video, you know, they know what it's kind of about, but they're trying to be really professional.
Yes.
And we're
you
just
know?
like, yeah, we want to hear it.
Yeah. So they're
Do it
usually
again.
pretty
Do it again.
professional.
Like I said the audience, but low-key, it was me, and I've heard it before, and I've seen it a couple times, but you know, we like to have fun, and you know, like you said, like the world's changing, and like that was your way of standing out. Like you're like, how do I get in this?
Memorable.
Yeah, how do I get in here and people remember me? And you know, one little interaction. So then Snoop Dogg the conversation with Snoop Dogg. They just shared some stuff on Instagram recently.
Yes.
And he's seen it again. So like you've been in his head.
Listen, if anybody knows Snoop Dogg, okay, he sent me a DM, he asked for my phone number, he said it's time for us to get in business, and then I haven't heard from him. So reach out, tag Snoop Dogg, comment him in the Instagram, and we're gonna get that going. But yeah, I mean, it was so funny. Like, this was another one of those moments where it's like preparation met opportunity. Where, I knew Snoop as well as a whole bunch of other celebrities were going to be at this Diddy event in LA. And I was like, I have to get in front of these other people. Like, Diddy had already bought Flipsticks, but I was like, I just got to maximize this opportunity. And, you talk about failures. Well, right the first day I get there, they invited me there to compete for like this $10,000 pitch competition, a second pitch competition. They're like, all right, this time you're going to get to pitch. Don't worry about it. Come out. And I killed the pitch. It was great. Everyone was cheering. Then like a 13-year-old girl got on the stage and she was just so cute. And I knew at that point that I had lost. And so I had to take that loss right out the gate. Now, but I had to also know, like, there's a reason I'm here and I have to take advantage of it. So I had already pre-planned with all these Flipsticks that were customized that had different celebrities, like brands and logos and faces on them. And so I was just always on the lookout for those people who I knew were going to be there. And I had given some to a couple of celebrities, but the big one who I wanted for sure was Snoop. And so when his segment was up, he was taking questions at the end. They were doing like a panel about cannabis and investing in cannabis, as you would imagine Snoop would do. And, they were like, all right, we're going to take one more question. And this girl was in front of me, and I was like, you got to be kidding me. Like, there's one last question. I'm not going to get to ask Snoop, like, pitch him on my business. She's asking her question, and just as a last-ditch effort, I just take my phone, and I'm, like, zoned in, like, mind mail connected to Snoop, and I just slap my phone onto the pillar behind her. And he sees it. He's looking, and he's just like, that nigga just stuck his motherfucking phone to the wall, right into the hot mic. And he's just looking around the stage. He's like, you see that nigga just stuck his motherfucking phone to the wall? And so they end the show, and he's like arguing with the people who are running the system. And he's like, yo, I want to hear about this sticky phone. Y'all not kicking me off this stage. I want to hear about the sticky phone. And so ultimately I get to go up to him, show him the product, tell him about it. We went backstage, took pictures, all this kind of stuff. And really the main benefit that came from there was AT&T was sponsoring this event. And one of their executives was just in the crowd, and he saw it and they just loved it. They just loved the fact that here you have a phone accessory. They're a phone company. It's at this event. Obviously it can impress Snoop Dogg. Diddy's giving them away. Like, what is this Flipstick thing? And I ended up talking to that executive for about 2 hours over like drinks. And ended up being an incredible resource. It's it's one of the main reasons why we were able to get into AT&T stores, and he's just been an amazing mentor and connector ever since then. And so it just goes to show you, I'm going after Snoop Dogg, but the real audience that day was this guy in the crowd,
right,
just watching and seeing the hustle and seeing what I was doing. And so it just goes to show you just never know why it is you're supposed to do what it is you're supposed to do, but you got to go for it.
That's amazing. Snoop Dogg. I mean, and that's so crazy that that Instagram profile shared that post about Target. Like,
oh yeah,
it said like Snoop Dogg roasted this dude, but like it was just like a clickbaity thing.
Yeah, clickbait title. Yeah, and they've been posting. We've had a couple of different outlets post about just how Snoop led to Shark Tank and Target and all this other kind of stuff. And yeah, I mean, I feel like because we've taken a lot of big swings and some cool stuff has happened to us, people like to talk about it. And so, yeah, we're just chugging along here.
What do you see for years to come with your brand? So you're in Target, Best Buy.
Yeah, we'll soon be in Best Buy. Okay. October's Best Buy. We're in AT&T. We'll be launching in Pilot and Flying J, which is like a big truck stop travel center place. Yep. They have about 500-600 stores. We're launching there in August. And then we're working on a couple other ones that should be dropping this year too. So I have a feeling we'll be close to 3,000 stores by the end of the year. And we were in 0 stores at the beginning of the year.
Wow.
So
Congrats.
a lot of
Huge.
progress,
Huge.
you know, in 1 year.
What does that feel like? I mean, being in these stores, I mean, that's just like
Oh,
Target.
man.
Like you were in the middle of the mall, you know?
I
Yeah,
know.
we had a
West
kiosk
Coun-
in the
right?
mall.
West County or
Yeah, the Galleria.
Or-
Yeah,
okay.
a kiosk. Yeah, we were at a kiosk
Middle
in
of
the
the
mall.
mall, Target, you know? Crazy.
You know, I was telling someone the other day, we recently went out to Arizona to live van life like a YouTuber. And I was, you know, we were trying to set the van up with stuff, and I was out of a flip stick, and I was just trying to get this like rattling thing to stop and just stick it on the wall. And I literally was just able to walk into a store. You know, I didn't have extra flip sticks, but I was able to walk into a store, buy my own product in another state that I'd never been to, and like rip it out the pack. And it just felt like, it was like this magical moment where it's like, holy shit. Like I can just pick shit up like that I made, and it's just in a store.
in a store.
Like,
Did you say anything to anybody or no?
no, I don't say anything. I never say anything.
Humble.
No, I just buy it and I'm just like, yeah, I just want to get one of these. And then usually people are like, oh, what is that thing? And I was like, oh yeah, it just sticks to your phone and lets you stick it there. I usually
It'd
don't
be
say
funny if you
anything.
hit like all the things. They're like, damn, why do you know so much about that?
Right? Like you just
like it's NASA technology, gecko foot.
yeah, like the guys from St. Louis that created it, like his social security number is 47. I don't usually try to say anything, but you know, you'd be surprised the reach of Shark Tank. Like some people do recognize me, which is still kind of weird, but every once in a while you get some people that are just like, were you on Shark Tank? And you're just like, yeah, that was me.
I seen that guy at Spark the other day, and I recognized him, but I didn't know from where. And then he was telling me he was on Shark Tank. I was like, that's why I knew you. I like, cause I just recognized this.
Yeah, that we met.
Yeah, that's just so crazy.
So from the get-go, your support system.
Yes. So, you know, I think support is huge, right? Because as an entrepreneur, it's lonely. Like even when you have people around you, it's very lonely, and you just, it's always this success and struggle. And you have to remind yourself a lot of times like that, yes, you may be struggling, but look at how far you've come.
Mm-hmm.
And so I have a couple of different like support systems that I think are important. So, you know, for me, like having a significant other that just fully believes in you, is like behind you 100%, always is telling you can get it done, you can do whatever you need. Like that means the world. Like it's so like incredibly valuable. But I think another piece that's huge for me is having someone that may be just getting started, or who kind of looks up to you, and being there to remind you of like how far you've come is huge. So that's why I'm a big believer in being a mentor and like mentoring people and helping them get to the next level that they're at. One, it's just fun and it's great and it's rewarding, but also it reminds you, like they'll remind you, like if you're not smiling or if you're not in a good mood, they'll be like, what's wrong? It's like, oh, this, that, and the other. It's like, but look at all the stuff that you're doing and all these things that you're doing.
Remember when you were here?
Yeah, remember when you were here? Like it sometimes takes that to just kind of reset yourself and remind you like you've come a long way. Yeah. So I think that's really big. And, you know, as much as my parents for the longest time were just worried to death, my mom still tells me I need to go back to college. But like now I think they're just like, they're very, very proud, and they've been proud for quite some time. But now I think they're like, okay, yeah, he probably doesn't.
You're doing
well, at least
all
my
right.
dad, my mom she's like, you really should think about going back to school, Akeem.
Take a class. Just take one class.
Just take one. Just start with one class. You know, the community college has classes open.
What does that sound like?
You.
Me. It's
Just
all
take
that.
just one
class.
One class.
I'm an educator, and education's power. So, knowledge.
And see, the thing is, I'm a big believer in learning, right? Like I'm always learning. We talked about YouTube University. Like you have to constantly be learning and educating yourself. But some people just learn in different ways. Some people belong in the classroom. They need the structure that comes with the classroom to learn. And then other people are like, I need to watch a video. Like that's going to teach me. But it's important no matter what to always be like just learning new things. Yeah. I can't tell you how many like things that would probably like seem like useless information that I just learned that then like years later I can call back on it, or I know something is possible because I learned that process. Right.
And you can always get inspired too, because like being an entrepreneur, you have nobody to tell you what to do. So you like have to come up with things to do. So like if you see, you get inspired by an artist that makes you want to, like that design would be cool or whatever it may be. So it's just, it's just always learning. Always.
Do you have mentors?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. Like I think one of the reasons we've had so much progress in the last year is, for the longest time, I could not find a mentor that I thought was good. Like I would get introduced to people. I talked to them. They'd be in a position to be a great mentor, but that connection wasn't there. Like they weren't fully bought in, or I wasn't fully bought in, or it just didn't click. But last year, I met a mentor who actually happens to run an accelerator program here in St. Louis called UMSL DEI Accelerator. We ended up winning $50,000 from them. And then after the program, he just was like, hey, what do you need? And I was like, I need to get into major retail. Like that's what would make a big difference for us. And he said, okay. He's like, I'm going to make a couple phone calls for you. And then he also said, he's like, you seem like the type of person that needs someone to hold them accountable. And I'm like, yes, that's exactly right. I am. He's like, well, do you want to have a call every week? And, I'll make sure that you keep doing that. And that's exactly what we did. And, anytime I was afraid to move forward too fast, because I'm someone I'm kind of cautious sometimes, where I'm just like, I don't want to spend all this money to try to like make this big bet. Yeah. He was right there to just be like, no, you have to. You got to do it. Go. He probably would like me saying this, but what he always says, he's like, Akeem, you gotta stop masturbating on it, and you just gotta get it done.
Oh wow.
That's his thing. And you're like, all right.
He's like,
done.
He's an old man. They got these 1950s sayings.
You just roll with it.
Stop masturbating on it and just get that shit done. But you're like, word, got it.
Yeah. When he says that, I'm like, all right, I've been thinking about this for too long, and it's time to pull the trigger. And so honestly, man, having a great mentor has been huge. Like, for one, just to be that accountability person to just keep pushing you forward, but also when you have someone that can just make a phone call, ask for a favor, like we all know it's all about who you know. Mm-hmm. So having someone that can just make a phone call to a top rep group and say, hey, yeah, I want you to represent this guy. And then they're like, okay, yep, we'll take you on as a client. When if I had to email them, they wouldn't have returned the email. Yeah. Like it's huge. Yeah. And I talked earlier about as we're developing new products, we want to get more sophisticated, have some a little sexier. And, we got an introduction to an industrial design firm that only works with Fortune 500 companies. They haven't even updated their website since like 1997. And we could not afford to work with them if it hadn't come from a connection. Right. It hadn't come from a favor. And
nor would they even have took that conversation.
Yeah, they would have been like, well, we don't need the business.
Yeah, we're good.
So yeah. Mentors are huge.
And you give that back. You get mentored and then you give that back. And I met your mentee at the event too. And they're crushing it too, it sounds like. And you made a big difference in his life as well.
It's key.
Yeah,
like
he was a peach.
Yeah. You always want to, it's so important to like, I'm a big believer that you give as much as you get. Like, and oftentimes when you're giving, you're not doing it with the intention of getting something in return, but that's just the law of the universe, right? It just happens. Mm-hmm. And I tell people all the time, like, I'm a big brother in Big Brothers Big Sisters, and my little mentee there, which is not the one you met, but another one. I helped him with his English, and he got better in English, and ultimately I helped him to write and edit a book, and he published the book, and now it's in like multiple bookstores and selling and all this great stuff. And so I remember one day the CEO of Big Brothers Big Sisters called me up and was just like, hey, we have one of our board members just likes to meet people and wants to meet you and blah blah blah. And so I ended up meeting with him. We had lunch, we're chatting. He's a very successful business owner in finance. And, we kept in touch. And when it was time for us to raise money at the end of last year, I was like, man, I need my first investor. Like I have to get an investor before I have this big investor meeting. I can't go with no investors. And so literally just called him up. I was like, yo, I need an investor. And he was just like, well, how much do you need? And I was like, it would be really nice if I could raise $100,000. In 2 weeks. And he's like, okay. And just cut a check. Wow. And it was like, I literally cried after I got off the phone because I was like, wow, the fact that 4 years ago, I decided to sign up to volunteer to mentor a kid just led to me getting $100,000 investment. Mm-hmm. Crazy. And it's like I didn't have the intention to do that, but it's what ended up happening. So big believer in give more, you get more.
Yeah, the world works in mysterious ways, and you know, you just it just seems like you're just that networking spirit. Like you're just in these situations, you're at these doors at the right time. Like you're going in the elevator when somebody's on the 10th floor coming down in the 9th, and like instead of being quiet with your AirPods in, you're like open to at least like trying to talk to them.
Yeah,
you know?
Absolutely.
I've had that where people like it's just crazy. Like it's such a small and like so I kind of want to pivot towards St. Louis. You know, tell us about the city of St. Louis, what that means to you, how they've been. I mean, STL Made, all these places have been pushing your journey and like amplifying your story. So just tell us a little bit about, St. Louis and building your company right here in downtown St. Louis.
Yeah, I mean, for the longest time, I was ready to leave St. Louis. And I think a lot of people can, have felt that way. I felt like for the first few years of my business that I just was not getting support. Like I was like, man, it's just really hard. Even though I was still getting support, but it just didn't feel like in a big enough way. I was going to Atlanta and LA and I would get all these opportunities. And I'm like, man, none of these opportunities are happening here. I remember I was feeling that way one day and I was thinking back to being at the Galleria. And I was thinking about all the people that came up and were just like, I don't even want this piece of junk product, but I'm just going to buy it because I like you and I want to support you, and they weren't going to put it on their phones. They're just like, I'll just take it. But like that was support. And that was something that you don't get in every town, and so when 2020 came around, we were on Shark Tank. Like right at that time, we ended up winning 2 big awards. The UMSL one I told you about, and then also Arch Grants. And we won those right before Shark Tank. So none of them knew we were on Shark Tank, that we were going to be on Shark Tank very soon. But once that happened, it just started to really change things. Like people started to hear about us in St. Louis, and when it rains, it pours. And next thing I know, like I was constantly getting connections and news and press, and all these resources were just like coming in. And I was like, wow, like once you know a couple of people in St. Louis, you really know everybody in St. Louis.
That's so true.
It's not so big where you can't get into doors. Where people won't take meetings with you and like, oh no, you're trying to climb a ladder, get out of here. No, people will always take meetings with you here, which is great. And so, I mean, we've had so much support. You mentioned STL Made, every news network has covered us. I remember Fox 2 News covered us like at the very beginning. They were just like, yeah, let's talk about you. Let's hit it from this angle. Let's do it this way. We've had an incredible amount of support from, everyone in St. Louis. We would not be here without it. And that's why I stay, because I'm like, man, I don't know if I could do this there. And I definitely don't want to start over the network that I've built, here in St. Louis. I wouldn't want to try to start over from scratch somewhere else.
Right. No, that's inspiring.
And I know we kind of shifted. I was going to ask a question before you did, but you finish off with mentoring and like giving back. And then earlier at the beginning of the podcast, you were saying how like the place that you worked was just so like respectful of employees and their time and their brain power and wellness. And so how do you come back full circle as now a business owner with your employees? Because you're growing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's huge. Like today we went in, we're doing a fitness challenge and, we signed up, paid for everyone to get a gym membership so they could all go to the gym and participate. And, sometimes, we'll do one cool thing that they always had at Square was that's called Square Games. It was like a big field day. And so we did a field day a couple months ago out at Creve Coeur Lake and, did zip lining and all that kind of stuff. And so I just think it's important. Like you want to have fun. Life is too short to be super serious about everything and, just trying to squeeze every last bit of productivity out of your workers. Like that's no fun. So I'm a big believer that, I want people to enjoy working for me. I want to pay them fairly. I'm not, trying to pay people minimum wage. Like no one wants to work for that. You're not gonna get good employees, especially not today. I'm I learned there that people work really hard for you and they stay a long time when they like working there and they feel like you care about them. And so I just try to do the same thing. And I tell people, hey, look, we're going to either succeed together, we're going to fail together, but either way, we're doing it together.
We're riding together.
Yeah, and they can see that, and like you said, you wanted to be what those places that you were at before. Like if you were at a different place where like some people go into a work environment, they don't know what another work environment's like,
right?
But you were in that tech company where they're like, oh, you want to take an extra vacation for your mental health? Go ahead. Oh, take off early on Friday. Oh, you want to work from home today? Whatever. Get the stuff done.
Which was the exact opposite of the old school telecom companies I worked at, which were extremely rigid in the way they did things. They were always slashing benefits, slashing pay, trying to just nickel and dime everything. The people at the bottom. It's like, ugh, you know, you don't want to stay when you're like, oh, they really don't care.
Yeah.
And you have like literally in a number, like you are literally an employee number. You check, you type a number.
ID 007623. You're just like,
it's crazy because it's cool because like I see at your team, like their family's coming up, and like, you know, some of your team members has a family. The kids are up there one day. Like it doesn't matter. You're there. Like if you know, because childcare is expensive, whatever it might be, like you just work around that. And you know,
I remember when I was at Square, my boss used to always say, he's like, I don't care, you know, how often you're at work, when you're at work, what you're doing, just get your work done. And as long as people are getting their work done, I'm happy. Yeah. And that's really all that matters. And some people can get their work done at home and some people can't. You know, some people get their work done with kids and some people can't. Yeah. So it's just like, if we all get our work done, that's all that matters.
Whatever works for you. So you recently just had your Flipstick Creators Challenge. So how did that go over?
Oh man, I was honestly super scared.
What?
Leading into it, I was like, no one's gonna show up. It's gonna be like me and like 2 people. It's gonna be terrible. But I'm always afraid of events and parties. Like that's why I don't like to have birthday parties.
No one's gonna come.
No one's gonna come. I'm just
Me
like,
too.
And it's a self.
I kind of have that fear every time we like have an event.
So
I'm like,
scary. But of course, thanks to you all, we actually had great turnout. It was such an awesome event. There was just tons of amazing content made with the Flipstick. And for those who don't know, essentially we did a creator contest in collaboration with Ballpark Village. And we invited all these different content creators to come out and to get a free customized Flipstick. And then they could make content anywhere in Ballpark Village and show off all the amenities that were there, or show off how the Flipstick works, kind of whatever they wanted to do, and just really have fun and, you know, camaraderie. We gave away tons and tons of prizes, probably close to $30,000 in prizes, from, you know, $200 bottle service at a bar to hotel room stays to a suite at the Cards games, Cardinals tickets. And then, of course, our grand prize was a $10,000 sponsorship package from Flipstick. And, you know, we were just so impressed by the creativity of the people that came out. Like, we can't wait to do the next one. Just had a meeting today with some people that work with some really big sports brands and beverage brands and stuff like that. And they were just like, they were hearing about the event we did with Park Village. And they're like, this is amazing. Like, this is the next thing. Like, we're going to tell all of our clients about this. Yeah. So, yeah, it was such a awesome event. And it just, honestly, it made me really happy. I got to see our whole team come together to like work behind this event, and everyone worked really hard to make it happen. And I think this was one of those moments, you know, as an entrepreneur, you always feel like you kind of have to do everything. And it's just like you, and, you know, people don't do it exactly the way you want. And everything is just like on you. Like you just feel like you're always wearing that weight. And I feel like for this event was one of those times where I was as hands-off as I've probably been on any big project, and it was successful. Right. And it just really made me feel like, oh, wow, I've got a really good, you know, you talk about support systems. I got a really good support system of people that all came together to make this happen. And just makes me incredibly grateful.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it was an awesome event. And just to see like your team get together and you guys were partying, dancing on the tables. Like I seen a video, Andrew was like everybody was getting it.
We were a little lit.
But that's what I'm saying. Good. Like stuff like that, and bringing the city out to be more creative and giving them a chance to win stuff, because you know, everybody, you know, is making stuff with their phones. And like we said, the diverse people that were there, the age groups, like everybody can use this product and make something and just have fun, you know, and get together. So that was going to kind of like lead me into, you know, the next question about like these events, these challenges, but like we talked briefly about like what the future of Flipstick looks like. I mean, where is your mind at for the next like 1, 3, 5 years? Like where do you see your guys' self at? I mean, more stores, obviously. And
I mean, you know, we want to obviously push retail. We want to push international sales. You know, we want to get more influencers. We want to get our product in more influencers' hands and eventually get to that status where people, even if they haven't bought a Flipstick, they know what it is. Like that's the ultimate goal for us. You know, we have new products on the horizon that we've shown off to retailers and influencers, and people are really excited about it. So we want to release new products. We do think that our promotional business has like this really big opportunity, right? Where we customize Flipsticks for brands. We think that's going to be a major revenue stream for us, and really just perfect for brands that want people not just to get a free, tchotchke, but to actually talk about their brand. I think that's perfect for that. But we also think this events part is going to be pretty cool. We just talked to, I won't use their name, but they are as big as it gets in like festivals and events. And we were just talking to them about what we did and had a really productive conversation. And they were like, all right, you know what? You can't afford us, but we're going to make some phone calls and some connections for you. So I do think that partnering around these kind of like activations, these event venue type activations is really exciting. So yeah, lots of stuff on the horizon. And I'm the type of guy who, I like to have lots of, what's the term, like fuels in your fire, something like that.
Yeah.
Or coals in the fire.
Yeah, lots of coals in the fire. So I don't know which one is the right path, but I know that if we have our hands in all these places, like one of them is really going to kick off. And as it kicks off, we'll put a lot of focus there and push. And then if something else pops up, it's like, oh, that's a focus now. Then we'll push in that direction. So
just kind of figure out where the business is going to take you.
I like to be very flexible because, you mentioned having worked for companies. I feel like when I was working at a lot of corporations, it's very rigid. Like there's this 5-year plan. You have to stick to it. This is what we're doing. And that's not always the right move. Like it's very agile. Sometimes you have to change. And, being at the bottom and being able to see like this is the wrong decision, but nobody else at the top see that, like it kind of trained me. And I feel like I learned a lot working for different type of companies because it lets me know like, setting up a big plan and saying this is the way we're going to move forward is not the right way. Like you want to look and learn and be agile and listen to those around you.
I have like a 2-part question and then we'll kind of lighten it up a little. But what are some like misconceptions that people have about you or your brand or like even, you're a minority, like has that created any challenges for you as a leader and,
misconceptions.
Sorry, just that's a loaded.
It's a good question. I think I talked earlier about not having connections to St. Louis. Being Black in St. Louis, we live in a very racially divided town. Like it throughout history, it's been a city where that's why we have so many municipalities. People that want their money going to other races. I remember my dad telling me when he was growing up, his mom. My grandmother tried to move out to like a neighborhood in the county, and the law on the books when my dad was a kid was that because this town is not 50%, 51% Black, you can't move here. And so she couldn't even leave. She couldn't even move out the city to a neighborhood she wanted to move to at the time. So there's all this like racial history here. And I absolutely felt, when I first started my business that, we did not have a lot of support outside of Black people. Like I remember being at the Galleria and we set up, our kiosk. We're just hustling sales, like trying to stop everybody. And I would say, even though that mall is probably pretty close to 50-50, like white and Black, our customers were probably like 80%, 85% Black. Like white people would come by and they would clutch their purse and I'm like, we work here. Like, what do you think is going to happen here? But that's it's real and that's what we experience. And, now we have a lot more validation. We've been on shows and we've been in retailers and, we come into the room with probably a lot more credibility than we used to. And so that doesn't necessarily happen so much anymore. But it is something that, every minority entrepreneur, every woman entrepreneur has to face, in this country.
Yeah.
And, now, even though we come in with the credibility and so we can get into these rooms, like I noticed sometime our marketing director, Andrew, he's a white guy. And we'll walk into a room and I'll notice, even though people may know that I'm the CEO, they won't talk to me. They'll talk to Andrew. And I'll pick up on it. And he probably doesn't pick up on it, but I'll be like, wow, they're directing all their questions, everything they're talking about, they're talking to him like he's in charge, not realizing I'm the one who's going to make the decision.
Yeah.
And so like, those are the things that, as a Black entrepreneur, you're going to face. Like there's no way around them, in the world that we live in. Like that's what happens. And not that it happens all the time, but it's something you have to be prepared for.
Yeah.
And so, growing up, I, went to DeSmit, a predominantly white high school, and then I went to Howard, a predominantly Black college. And so I got to see like these duality of worlds and like what it is to be Black in white spaces and what it is to be Black in Black spaces, and really understand how to navigate those things, how to not, be upset and be like, why are you talking to him instead of talking to me? Like, that's not going to be productive for me, and their money's green. So I'm trying to get to that green money.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I feel like I'm pretty good at what they call mirroring, and basically kind of just taking the way somebody behaves and behaving that same way back with them. But that makes people feel comfortable when you do that.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And so while there have been challenges, just like anything in entrepreneurship, you got to overcome them.
Yeah.
You can't let the fact that it's more difficult for you to get something and to move forward to stop you or to give you an excuse to not do it.
Mm-hmm.
Because everyone has a reason why something's more difficult for them, right? And there's a guy, Jim Rohn, one of my favorite public speakers, motivational speakers, and he always says, he's like, you think it's hard to be successful in America? He's like, no, I'll show you what's hard. Being successful in Bangladesh is hard. Okay. So, and like you hear that, and as much as we, have discrimination in this country, it's like, man, but imagine if you were in Taiwan and you were trying to start a company from nothing.
Right.
It's like everyone has it harder than somebody else, and you just got to take the cards that you're dealt and push. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't fight for things to be better and more equal and more fair, and for there to be more opportunity, because we all should. But while it is harder, I'm like, look, I just got to make it happen. So, I got to take the fact that it may be harder for me here and take that, it may be easier for me here, and just take it like that.
I read a quote one time, and it was like, the most noble thing about victimhood is overcoming it. And
so true.
And that could be misconstrued, because other people do have it harder, but like, it's very noble. Like, everybody's could be a victim in their own right, but like the noble thing is that overcoming it and that perseverance and that coming through on the other side. So,
and the thing about America is there's so many stories of people doing just that. Right. There's so many stories of it. And so it's like you can look at all those different stories and say, oh, well, that's the exception to the rule. Or you can say, well, if they did it, why can't I? Because, maybe today they look like they're special and they're important, but they were just like you one day. Like, I just had a meeting with Dave Stewart, the founder, former CEO of Worldwide Technologies, second wealthiest black man in the country, like fifth in the world, multi-billionaire. And we were watching a video today. He's a part owner in Blues. And we're watching a video today about his upbringing. He grew up in Clint, Missouri. When he was a kid, his dad had to drive around the city to make sure when his kids got up the next morning, they weren't going to be attacked for going to school because they were trying to integrate the schools. And he grew up in this small, tiny little town where he wasn't supposed to have white friends. It wasn't supposed to do these things. And he ended up borrowing, fast forward, he borrows $2,000 from his dad and starts Worldwide Technologies. Now it's a multi-billion-dollar company. It's like, if somebody like him could come from the middle of nowhere with nothing and build a multi-billion-dollar organization, what says that you can't? He didn't go to Harvard. He wasn't set up for any success. He had it as hard as anybody. We think of people like Oprah, and we think of all these self-made people that just started from nothing. It's like, hey, there's opportunity. You just gotta go for it.
Yeah, absolutely. Dave Stewart is inspiring, and just like you talking about him, I've heard a lot of people bring his name up. That would be a really cool guest to get on here. He definitely shed some extreme knowledge.
Oh, man.
I mean, you see Worldwide
So much
Technologies
wisdom.
every time we drive past the racetrack. Oh my gosh.
I read a statistic the other day. His Worldwide Technologies does business with 80% of the Fortune 500 companies. Crazy.
Yeah. So it is the STL Bucket List Show. As always, we like to shed light because, all of our listeners are from St. Louis, and, we get some out of the country sometimes, which is pretty cool, but they might be from St. Louis. But we want to shed light on some of your favorite things to do. So let's just imagine, it's a weekend, you ain't got shit to do. You guys are going out. What's your ideal day in St. Louis? What are a few spots that you guys like to hit up?
Yeah, well, actually tying it back to Flipstick, one thing that's really cool about St. Louis is we have a lot of really dope festivals and events. And so we actually got started. Our very first time selling Flipsticks to the public was at the International Food Festival in Tower Grove.
Oh, I love that.
And, we went to the International Festival and we were like, we broke a lot of rules, but that's one of my favorite spots. Every year I love going to International Food Festival, International Festival, tasting all the different foods, the Q in the Lou. I love that event.
Oh yeah.
He likes eating. He likes.
You can't tell. I was about to go down the pizza festival. Like, it was going to be all food. But also the African Arts Festival is super cool that comes to town. So we have a lot of great just events. And I like to do those because they're only here once a year and it's super fun. But some of like my go-to places, which are also going to be restaurants, I love, anytime I have someone who's like moderately healthy, I'm like, let's go to Sweet Art, one of my favorite places. Vegan, but like home cooked vegan soul food, amazing vegan pastries. Also on the South Side, it's one of my favorite spots. We love going to Cinder House on a special occasion. Just like so a beautiful view.
We'll be there in a week.
Brazilian steakhouse style food.
Immaculate vibes.
It's just the vibe.
Are unbelievable. The rooftop,
yeah,
it's amazing. So love going there. Obviously you can't be from St. Louis and not like Ted Drew's. Just the other day, was standing outside with like 800 people in front of us, getting some ice cream. I love, but one of my favorites, my go-to places is Sushi Eye. Shout out to my guys at Sushi Eye for affordable, all-you-can-eat sushi all over town. That's probably the place we frequent the most. We love sushi.
They do all you can eat it's only Tuesdays, right? Or
every day.
Oh, it's every day.
But
you have to sit in. You have to
the price is very sit in.
Because they used to do the Tuesday buy one get one free rolls
that might
or
be
something.
In, like,
remember, if you don't eat it all.
by St. Charles.
Yeah,
it's location by location. Yeah. I know the one downtown is on Sundays.
They do. They make great sushi.
Oh, that's a good
love
Sunday.
sushi.
Oh yeah,
that's a good Sunday.
But no,
all of our favorite places involve food as well, and like we have so many great parks in St. Louis, and just so many great local restaurants, and the food scene's very underrated. Like there's people really crushing it, with when it comes to food. And then there's another question I like to ask. And
you know what? I'm actually have one more. Sorry.
Yeah.
So one that I didn't experience until I was a little bit older was going out to like Grafton and where all those different wineries are. Like that's a great.
You take
date.
the ferry.
Wait, there's a ferry?
If you go from St. Charles, there's a ferry that goes.
But it's even worth it. Yes. So whenever we were kids, my parents, we would go apple picking at Eckert's and we would ride the ferry over into Illinois. And I just thought it was now what? I took you like 2 years ago as a date. He'd never been on it. And I was like, this is so much shorter than it felt like as a kid. Like I was like, we're going on an adventure as a kid. But go to St. Charles and take the ferry. It's like what, $10? So like round
and sometimes
trip or
depending
something.
on where you live downtown. Sometimes it's actually quicker because getting from downtown to Grafton, you got to go all the way up by Hazelwood and then get across.
But no,
and it's right there by the loading dock, and the
ferry
ferry comes in, and the Aries Winery has like the ski lift that like takes you up to the winery.
Yeah, and just hit up all the wineries.
And what's the other in like near Eureka area on the other side? What's that area called that has no wineries? Because you have some on the east side.
Is that Augusta?
Augusta?
Yeah, like Augusta.
Yeah, Montel, I think.
Yeah. Montel is over there.
Yep.
And they're redeveloping all that area too. With
like I love biking over there.
Some guy from
They're
Napa
gonna make it like
stuff.
apparently like the next Napa is like their plan.
Yeah.
So
really,
some
I'm
California
excited,
person came in and bought like
drinker.
a lot of that land, and like they've been like just putting like making it like an Napa, I guess. I don't know. So it's exciting stuff.
Awesome.
There's a lot of good development coming in St. Louis, and that's what's like exciting about you and our company is like we're building here in St. Louis, and you're into real estate too. That's one of my goals. It's been one of my goals, but like it's a good time to get into this real estate market, get into this city because we have the soccer stadium coming. Midtown's getting redeveloped. The city foundry's over there. Downtown needs a lot of work, but there's a lot of people down there that are doing stuff. Like in a lot of Square just moved their 4,000 employees.
There's tons of
right
hotels going up, tons of new apartment buildings going up.
Nice apartment buildings.
Yes,
so
nice.
It's just amazing. So there's one question I really like, and I'm kind of putting you on the spot with this one, but if you could have lunch with anyone in the world just for a conversation, like go to get coffee, nothing business related, just like, no investment, just like, yo, let's sit down, let's talk. Who would that be and why? I usually text these questions, but I forgot to text you so you could think about it.
Man.
But I know there's a lot. It's always a loaded and hard question.
That's a hard question.
Yeah.
If I could sit down with anybody.
You ask this, and I'm like, I don't even know who I would choose. I have no idea.
That's so tough. It's like I can only pick one person.
You can say a group lunch.
Well, one of my favorite books is Think and Grow Rich.
Mm-hmm.
And so Think and Grow Rich, they teach about having a mastermind group. and it can be imaginary, where it's just like a group of people that you would go to ask them questions about how you should proceed. And so one of those people for me is Barack Obama. And while I used to be very like enchanted by politics, now I'm like, I don't know about that. But just what it took for him to do what he's accomplished, and just seeing what their family is doing now, which is amazing. I would just love to sit down with him and just hear some of those stories of like what it took, and the breaks he got, and the things that happened to him that allowed him to, become the most powerful man in the world. Like, to me, it's just, and what he did, with that time there. Like, I think that would be just a remarkable conversation to have. Yeah. So for me, it would have to be Barack Obama.
Nice.
Yeah, that's special.
Great answer.
Yeah, it's but yeah, like I said, putting you on the spot, there's so many people, and
there's so many.
Hard.
And like, even who wrote Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill, or
that's him.
Like I forgot to say Dead or Alive, but like having a conversation with like mine would be like Henry Ford, like one of the biggest.
You say Dead or Alive.
I meant to say that. But still, Barack Obama, solid, But like that was like mine, like Henry Ford, like that dude, like created the most used thing in the world, like Apple, like phones, like stuff like that absolutely changes the world. But Barack Obama, I think a couple guests said that.
I think so too.
Yeah, I've heard that name a couple times. Oprah, we've heard.
Yeah, I was listening with so many people. You know what I'm saying?
There's a lot of inspiring people, and you can just take something from.
That's what we love about the podcast platform, is we get to actually have people on and talk. Like, there's not that many times in life where you can sit down for an hour and talk to somebody with no distractions.
Get to know.
So having this platform, we can invite any, like Dave Stewart, Maxine Clark, who we're going to see pretty soon. She's coming on the pod. Yeah, she's coming on the podcast too. So you connected us with that, so I appreciate that. So,
well, thank you for being on here. And you can go ahead, if you want, look at the camera and tell all of our listeners where they can find you, support you.
Links, social media.
Yeah, so you can find us at Get GET Flip FLIP Stick STIK. So at Get Flip Stick, no C in stick, on all social media platforms. And our website is also getflipstick.com. And for those who maybe want to join this crazy circus that we got going on, we actually are looking for an intern. And it'll be a paid internship. Don't do that volunteering stuff. Paid internship. So we're just looking for people that want to learn about entrepreneurship, about marketing, and are really ready to work hard and have fun. And so if you're interested in that, feel free to reach out to us on social media. But you can find Flipsticks on our website, on Amazon, Target, AT&T, and soon a few other stores. But that's where you can find us.
And Snoop Dogg, come on now.
Yes, Snoop. Tag Snoop and say, Snoop, it's time for you to invest. Keep your word. Invest in Flipstick.
It'll happen, man. And who knows, by the time this episode comes out, he might call you, because you sent him your phone number. You're like, call me.
No, he asked for a
I remember
number.
that day you were like holding your phone. You were holding your phone.
It was crazy.
Because if you miss it, you miss it. It's like, you never know.
Yes, this is very true. But it's all about, as we've kind of talked about a lot here, everything's about timing.
Timing is everything.
And I feel like things happen when they're supposed to happen. It's always at the right time. It's not when you necessarily think it should happen. Right. It's always when it should happen. So I just leave it up to the universe. And I'm like, I'm just going to do the things I need to do. And when the time is right, the time is right.
Absolutely. So that wraps it up. So I am your host, Luke Farrell.
I'm your other host, Marissa Farrell.
Thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of the STL Bucket List Show. We're really trying to build something special where we bring people from St. Louis that are doing work in St. Louis, and just have real, raw conversations, unfiltered, getting that entrepreneurial journey, people that are doing dope shit, people that are really just changing the way our city operates. So as always, we're recording here at Half Coast Studios. Matt with the ones and twos in the back, cutting it up like a DJ. Always editing the most fire content and putting it on YouTube for us, because we don't have the time to do it ourselves. So, and of course, our friends over at the Regional Arts Commission of St. Louis, they're the ones in St. Louis that are funding arts and art programs. So if you guys see murals, you guys see plays at the symphony and stuff like that, they are helping fund those, because especially after the past couple years that we went through, it was hard to bring those live shows back. So until next Wednesday.
Thanks, guys.